The last normal day of my life began with a simple phone call. I was at work when my phone vibrated. Seeing my father's name on the screen instantly brought a smile to my face. My dad and I spoke almost every day, ever since my mother passed away years earlier. He had been my biggest supporter, my protector, and my best friend. But when I answered, it wasn't my father on the other end. It was my stepmother, Linda. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "Come to the hospital. It's your dad." My heart dropped. I don't remember the drive to the hospital. I only remember running through the hallways, praying over and over that everything would be okay. Dad had been feeling tired lately, but he always brushed it off. He kept saying he was fine. When I arrived, Linda was sitting outside the intensive care unit with tears running down her face. "The doctors are doing everything they can," she whispered. A terrible fear settled inside me. A few minutes later, a doctor came out. One look at his face told me everything before he even spoke. "I'm sorry. We did our best. The world stopped." I felt as though someone had ripped my heart out of my chest. My legs gave out beneath me. The strongest man I had ever known was gone. My father was dead. The days that followed felt like a nightmare. Friends and relatives filled the house with flowers, food, and sympathy. Everyone spoke about what a kind and generous man my father had been. They were right. He had worked hard his entire life to provide for the people he loved. Even after marrying Linda 10 years earlier, he never stopped putting me first. He attended every important moment in my life and constantly reminded me that no matter how old I became, I would always be his child. During the funeral, I stood beside his casket, struggling to accept reality. As people shared stories about him, tears streamed down my face. Then I noticed something strange. Linda wasn't looking at the casket. She wasn't crying. Instead, she seemed distracted, almost impatient. At first, I thought I was imagining it. Grief can make people behave differently. But over the next few days, things became even stranger. The warmth she once showed me disappeared completely. She stopped asking if I had eaten. She stopped speaking to me unless necessary. Every conversation felt cold and forced. One evening, I walked into Dad's study and found her searching through drawers and cabinets. When she saw me, she quickly closed a folder. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Just organizing paperwork." She replied sharply. Something about her tone made me uneasy. That night, I sat alone in my bedroom looking at an old photo of Dad and me from when I was 12 years old. I remembered something he had told me only weeks before his death. "No matter what happens, you'll be okay. Trust me." At the time, I hadn't understood why he sounded so serious. Now those words echoed in my mind. The house no longer felt like home. Every hallway seemed colder. Every room felt unfamiliar. And for the first time since Dad's funeral, a frightening thought entered my mind. My father was gone, and I had a feeling that the person living under the same roof as me was no longer family. I just didn't know how much my life was about to change. 3 weeks after my father's funeral, the house felt completely different. The laughter that once filled the rooms was gone. The warmth Dad brought into every corner of the home had vanished with him. What remained was silence and an uncomfortable tension that seemed to grow stronger every day. Linda barely spoke to me anymore. Whenever I entered a room, she either ignored me or left. At first, I tried to be understanding. We were both grieving, after all. Losing Dad had shattered both of our lives, or so I thought. One Saturday morning, I came downstairs and found Linda sitting at the dining table. A stack of papers lay neatly in front of her. She looked up at me with an expression I had never seen before. Cold, emotionless, almost victorious. "We need to talk," she said. A knot formed in my stomach. I sat across from her. For a few moments, neither of us spoke. Then she pushed the papers toward me. "I think it's time for you to move out." I stared at her, unable to process what I had just heard. What? You heard me. I blinked in disbelief. This is my home. No. She replied sharply. It was your father's home. Now it's mine. The words hit me like a punch to the chest. I looked around the room where I had celebrated birthdays, shared family dinners, and created memories with my dad. How could she say that, Linda, my father just died, and life goes on? She answered coldly. I couldn't believe the woman sitting in front of me was the same person who had hugged me at the funeral. The mask had finally come off. You want me to leave? I asked. I want you out by the end of the week. My heart shattered. Why? For the first time, a hint of annoyance appeared on her face. Because you're an adult, because I want my own life, and because I don't want to spend the rest of my years supporting someone else's child. Someone else's child. Not Dad's child, not family, just someone else's child. I stood up so quickly that my chair nearly fell backward. Tears burned in my eyes. You know he loved me. She shrugged. That doesn't change anything. The next few days were the hardest of my life. I called relatives, hoping someone would stand up for me. Most avoided getting involved. Some said Linda had every right to make decisions about the house. Others simply stopped answering my calls. The betrayal cut deeper than I could describe. By Friday evening, I packed everything I owned into 2 suitcases. As I carried the final bag to the front door, I paused. Dad's photograph hung on the wall nearby. I stared at his smiling face. I miss you, I whispered. For a moment, it felt like my entire world had abandoned me. Linda watched from the living room without saying a word. No apology, no sympathy, nothing. I walked out of the house carrying only my belongings and a broken heart. A close friend offered me a small room in his apartment, and I accepted because I had nowhere else to go. The following weeks were a struggle. I worked extra shifts, skipped meals to save money, and spent countless nights wondering how everything had fallen apart so quickly. Then one evening, while sorting through old photos of Dad, I remembered something he had told me shortly before he passed away. No matter what happens, I've taken care of your future. At the time, I thought he was simply trying to comfort me. But now those words felt different, important. The next morning, my phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, a calm voice spoke. Hello, my name is Mr. Harrison. I'm your father's attorney. My heart skipped a beat. There are some things your father wanted you to know, and in that moment, everything began to change. The moment I hung up the phone with my father's attorney, my hands were shaking. For weeks, I had felt lost and abandoned. Ever since Linda forced me out of the house, my life had become a daily struggle. I worked long hours, barely slept, and constantly worried about how I would survive. Now, for the first time, a small spark of hope appeared. The next morning, I arrived at the attorney's office 15 minutes early. The building was quiet and professional, nothing like the chaos that had consumed my life lately. I sat in the waiting room, staring at family photos on my phone, until a receptionist called my name. Mr. Harrison will see you now. I followed her into a large office. Behind a polished wooden desk sat a gray-haired man with kind eyes. He stood and shook my hand. I'm sorry for your loss, he said. Thank you. After I sat down, he opened a thick file folder. I worked with your father for nearly 20 years. Hearing those words immediately brought tears to my eyes. Dad had always been careful about planning for the future. He believed in protecting the people he loved. Apparently, he had taken that responsibility far more seriously than I ever imagined. Mr. Harrison slid several documents across the desk. Your father instructed me to contact you if anything happened to him. I looked down at the paperwork. My name appeared on every page. Confused, I glanced back at him. What is this? It's proof of ownership. Ownership of what? He smiled slightly. Several assets your father transferred into your name over the past 7 years. For a moment, I thought I had misunderstood. What assets? Mr. Harrison opened another file. 3 rental properties. I froze. He continued, an investment portfolio. My eyes widened. And 40% ownership of the family business. The room suddenly felt very small. I couldn't speak. I couldn't think. All I could do was stare. Dad had secretly transferred everything into my name. Why? Mr. Harrison seemed to understand my confusion. Your father loved you very much, he said gently. He often spoke about making sure you would always be protected. Tears filled my eyes. Even after his death, Dad was still taking care of me. Mr. Harrison handed me a letter. This is from him. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a handwritten note. If you're reading this, then I'm no longer there to protect you personally. But please remember that my love never leaves you. I know life may become difficult after I'm gone, and some people may show their true colors. That's why I made arrangements years ago. Everything listed in these documents belongs to you. Build a beautiful life. Be kind, stay strong, and never let bitterness control your heart. I will always be proud of you. Love, Dad. By the time I finished reading, tears were streaming down my face. For weeks I had felt alone. Now I realized I never truly was. My father had seen something coming. Maybe he had recognized Linda's greed long before I did. Maybe he knew exactly what would happen after he was gone. Whatever the reason, he had prepared for it. Then Mr. Harrison revealed one final surprise. There is something else you should know. I looked up. The house Linda forced you out of. My stomach tightened. Yes. A small smile appeared on his face. Your father only left her temporary residency rights. I stared at him. What does that mean? It means she can live there for now. My heart began pounding. And who owns the property permanently? Mr. Harrison turned the final document toward me. At the bottom was my name. I was the legal owner. The same house Linda claimed was hers. The same house she threw me out of. And she had absolutely no idea. But she was about to find out. For the first time since my father's death, I slept peacefully. The pain of losing him was still there, and I knew it always would be. But now I carried something stronger than grief. I carried the truth. Dad had not abandoned me. He had protected me. Over the next few days, Mr. Harrison helped me complete the legal paperwork and transfer management of the assets into my control. Every document confirmed the same thing. The rental properties belonged to me, the investment accounts belonged to me, and most importantly, the house Linda had claimed as her own also belonged to me. The woman who had thrown me out was living in a home she didn't own, and she had no idea. A week later, Mr. Harrison sent her an official legal notice explaining the situation. I wasn't there when she opened it, but I heard about her reaction. Apparently, she called the attorney's office multiple times, insisting there had been a mistake. There wasn't. The documents were clear. The signatures were valid. The ownership records had been filed years earlier. She couldn't challenge them, she couldn't change them, and she certainly couldn't erase them. A few days later, my phone rang. Linda, for a moment, I considered ignoring the call. Instead, I answered. Her voice sounded completely different from the cold, cruel tone she had used when she forced me out. "Can we talk?" she asked softly. I almost laughed. 3 weeks earlier, she couldn't wait to get rid of me. Now she suddenly wanted to talk about what? I asked. There have been some misunderstandings. Misunderstandings. The word felt insulting. Throwing me out after my father's funeral wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a choice. No, Linda, I replied calmly. I think everything was perfectly understood. She became quiet. Then came the apology. She claimed she had been grieving. She claimed she wasn't thinking clearly. She claimed she regretted what happened. Maybe some of it was true. Maybe none of it was. Either way, it was too late. The moment she believed I was powerless, she showed me exactly who she was. People don't reveal their character when things are easy. They reveal it when they think there will be no consequences. Over the next month, the situation became even more interesting. Relatives who had ignored my calls suddenly reached out. Some invited me to dinner. Others asked how I was doing. A few even spoke negatively about Linda, despite defending her before. It was amazing how quickly people changed when money and property entered the conversation. But I remembered my father's letter. Don't let bitterness control your heart. So I refused to seek revenge through cruelty. I didn't humiliate Linda. I didn't insult the relatives who abandoned me. I simply moved forward. Eventually, Linda chose to move out of the house on her own. She knew there was no legal path forward. The chapter of my life that had caused so much pain finally came to an end. Months later, I stood on the porch of a beautiful new home, purchased with income from the properties Dad had left me. The sunset painted the sky in shades of gold and orange. In my hands was the old photograph of Dad and me. I smiled through tears. You were right. I whispered, no matter what happened, I was okay. The people who betrayed me had expected me to fail. Instead, I survived. They expected me to beg. Instead, I rebuilt. And they expected me to disappear. Instead, I created a future greater than anything they imagined. As the evening breeze drifted across the yard, I looked toward the horizon and felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Peace, because the greatest revenge wasn't taking everything from those who hurt me. It was living a happy, successful life without them. And thanks to my father's love, that was exactly what I was going to do.